Welcome back to Gameday Tarps podcast, episode 15. How are we doing today, guys?
Good, you?
I'm
Pretty
fantastic.
good, Riley.
Awesome. Glad to hear it, boys. Well, let's get right into probably the biggest sports news maybe in history in terms of contract size, something that we don't normally discuss, but let's talk some baseball here. Shohei Ohtani, $700 million for 10 years. He's taken the $2 million for those 10 years, and then he's deferring the other $68 million until 2043. What are our thoughts on the biggest sports contract we've seen in team sports?
I think it's a scammy way of doing things. I get you want to bring championships to that team, but I think it's a scammy way of doing things. I mean, awesome that he signed. Everyone thought he was going to Toronto. You know, like Jinx, no, I'm staying in Cali. I don't mind the deal. Like, I don't mind him going to the Dodgers at all.
Yeah, you're like me, yeah, about the deferment. Like, you don't like the deferment
Oh, yeah.
option? Yeah.
You know, it's really funny, this whole Shohei thing. Like, he made it clear at the start. He's like, I don't want people releasing publicly about what my intentions are. And the first time that he met with the Los Angeles Dodgers, Dave Roberts, the coach, was interviewed shortly after the meeting. And then he's like, oh, yeah, it went well with Shohei. And then all of a sudden, then Toronto's in the running. And they didn't really discuss too much about their meeting with Shohei. But, I mean, allegedly the guy was at home this whole time, and there was a plane heading to Toronto, and everybody and their dog was like, yup, he's coming to TO, boys. No.
Us included.
And then he later,
Us included.
he literally was sitting at home, and he was laughing when he saw those reports. He's like, yeah, joke's on you, boys. I'm not going to Toronto. I'm literally just going across the freeway to play with the Dodgers.
For me, I don't know how any of this is almost like a legal thing to do. Like, I heard on Missing Curfew podcast today, which made a lot of sense because Upshaw and O'Brien, they live in California. They were talking about like what a sweet deal. Now he's only going to be taxed $2 million a year for that contract. Well, he's in California, which has one of the highest tax laws in the U.S. And then he's going to be like, he can move wherever he wants in the final year or something. Like, say he just asked for trade to Florida or, you know, Texas, or if there's a team in Vegas, who knows, right? Like, I guess there's going to be Oakland there. So like, he's going to ask maybe to go to a tax-free state, and whatever state you last played in for your contract, that is where you get paid out the rest of that deferment. So instead of being taxed like 50% of his $700 million, like that's $350 million or whatever it's going to be, right? Now he's going to go, let's say to Florida. Let's just say he goes to the Marlins or whatever, right? Then all of a sudden he's getting no state income tax. He's still getting taxed on the money a little bit, but all of a sudden he's banking 3/4 or 7/8 or whatever it's going to be of that contract. Like, is that not tax evasion in the United States government's view? Like, saying, no, we signed him for $10 million for 10 years, but he can just choose when he wants the other $8 million a year instead of now. He just gets to only pay taxes on the $2 million. Like, doesn't that just seem almost illegal to you guys?
I mean, any way you look at it, this guy could literally throw one pitch when he comes back or hit one ball as a batter and just, you know, have the most freak injury, or, you know, yep, guy is still eligible to be paid out by the Dodgers for the next, 10 years. So
20 years.
Sorry, 20 years. Yeah. So
yeah, like,
he could literally just sit on his ass for the rest of his contract and he'd still be making guaranteed money at the end of the day. So like, wow, must be nice.
And good luck if you buy him out, because you always have to pay like for twice as long as the deal. So 40 years of him getting paid at like $5 million a year would be even more ridiculous if he all of a sudden just tanks off a cliff. The only thing that any team can hope for is that down the line they like trade for him and then they put him on injured reserve and they have this massive injury reserve pool to use because he's injured. But yeah, I don't like it.
the Rogers Corporation just fumbled the bag here. They could have made so many advertising deals, and they literally could have made their money back twice over if Shohei would have came to Toronto. I mean, the amount of commercials, endorsements, advertising with this guy, they could have made their money hand over fist with this guy. But guy got his money in LA, so yeah,
And
the Blue
reportedly,
Jays
why
are.
it was so easy for him to just say, "Yeah, I'll take $2 million a year," was because he makes over $41 million a year in endorsements, anyways. So, like, technically, he's making $43 million a year, but he's only getting that certain amount from the Dodgers. Like, I don't know. That's backwards to me for baseball. I just don't understand. Of all the leagues, that's the most weird contract situation where you can just kind of pick and choose when you get paid and how much and what percentage, and the league has like no say to stop it or anything like that.
Yeah, I think teams should, yeah, definitely be punished for the fact of trying to sign someone for 700 million. Like, no, you should have to struggle. I mean, who knows? Maybe in time it will. If they have an insane team in paying them all big contracts, Shohei might end up being a downside to that. But no, I think they should struggle with it now if you're willing to pay that much.
Exactly. Like, so NHL, NFL, NBA, you win the bidding war for a player, whatever that price is that you overpay or whatever, you're stuck. You got to pay that. In the NBA, you have the luxury tax. So if your owner wants to go over, you can pay that luxury tax. That's up to them. I don't really know how it works in the NFL. Their contracts are really weird as well, but definitely it's more about the guaranteed and non-guaranteed money for them. But like in the NHL, like, so let's say McDavid, right? You trade for McDavid's contract, you owe McDavid his contract. There's no getting around it. And I just don't know how that works. To me, it's dumb. I
like
don't
D,
like it.
like Rick DiPietro's contract, right? Guy's still
Mm-hmm.
making bags from the Islanders.
Exactly. Well, that's one thing we can even jump into. I know, Dak, you were talking about it. Like, should NHL teams be able to adjust contracts according based on performance? Like, should GMs start trying to find a way to put performance based bonuses in every contract so that you've been talking about a guy like Jonathan Huberdeau, he came off that huge season, his $10.5 million contract that the Flames signed him to, and he hasn't really done well the last 2 years. Seeing something where the contract could be restructured by the general manager because of the lack of performance, but that the player could also earn back those bonuses by playing better. What do you were kind of spitballing that. What's your thoughts around that idea?
Yeah, well, I think they should almost go like the NFL approach. They have the guaranteed money system, and then if you hit a certain point or milestone in that season, you get more money of that contract, I guess. So you could sign like a 50 mil contract, but have like 2 mil guaranteed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I definitely think that should be something in the NHL. Like, maybe offer Huberdeau like 4 or 5 mil guaranteed, but it's like if you hit like 80 points that season, here's the other half of that contract,
Yeah, I agree. I
or I
mean,
guess per year, yeah.
yeah, I know what you mean. But like that's what I'm thinking too, is like how are they going to make this work? Now the one thing is, like, if you talk about any player association, right? Like the NHLPA basically runs the show of the pro leagues. Like, they might not make the most money, but every player gets guaranteed contract. Every player gets guaranteed years unless they're bought out. They're guaranteed easy outs with waivers, right? Like, players can get another chance with waivers. There are so many things that give the players such a chance in the NHL to really work the general managers over. And it shows. Whereas you see in the NFL, look at running backs. They're just like, meh, yeah, you're good, but do we want to overcommit to you? Here's our quarterback who's ranked 35th in the league. He's not even better than some backups. We'll pay him $100 million. But our running back, like, do you want 5 mil? Like, will you take that, even though you were the leading rusher in the league last year, right? Like, so the NHLPA has done a really good job making sure their guys get their money based on past performance, not on current performance. And based on longevity and term and trade clauses and all that. Like they really have a solid setup for NHL players through the PA that other leagues just don't have.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't really followed other leagues that closely to pay attention to that aspect, I guess, but makes sense.
I mean, I like the idea of contract restructuring based on performance. I think that's really good for general managers so they know if you're locked down for 8 years with this guy and he's been slowly dropping off the face of the earth, you won't be so committed financially to him, you know? Like, yeah, he's gonna get a comfortable bag of money, but you're not gonna be hurting keeping him around, and you won't have to really essentially give him to a team who has a lot of salary cap. Hence, like example, the Arizona Coyotes, when like Pavel Datsuk's contract got traded when he went overseas. So just things like that. I think that'd be a good thing theoretically. I don't know. You never know. It could happen.
I think another thing that would benefit the league too would be now, like, and I get this. I think that NHL players more than any other league like stability in terms of years, but I think a maximum 5-year contract like the NBA would really benefit a lot of teams. You'd get out of contracts earlier. You wouldn't be able, like, come on, these guys are signing 28-year-olds to 8-year deals, and that puts them at 36, 37 years old. Like, yes, it's a good deal in the first couple of years, but by the time that team's only 5 years into that deal, it's a nightmare. So 5-year deals should be the max, in my opinion. If we're talking about like making it restructurable, not guaranteed money, then it should also be 5 years so that the players aren't stuck in a situation too where it's 8 years at a bad term with all of a sudden they're underperforming and they've gone from like 10 million a year to 1 million a year. Give them a chance to sign somewhere else after 5 years and get somewhere else. Because I just think, yeah, like 8 years in years 6, 7, 8 are usually the worst years for the player and the worst years for the team. And then all it is a complaint. Obviously, it's not a complaint by the player's bank account because he's like, oh, well, like, I don't care. I'm near the end of my career. I'm making $8 million a year. Who cares? But I just think that's something that they would look into changing to really closer to the NFL NBA model.
Or I mean, or even like 1 or 2 year maxes. I mean, I get players probably don't want to be moving around that much,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, like you might not be that great of a player in the next 5 years. So like you could stick with a player for 20 years, but he could still get a new contract every year kind of thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're going to have like that one guy that, he's been there for years and then he doesn't want to leave, but he doesn't want to sign another like 1 year, say $2 million contract.
Like what even?
But
Okay, so I like that. So what if you did like what if it was a 1-year league deal or 1-year deal league? Sorry, right? Everyone got 1-year deals, but it was all based like if the NHL had performance bases based on points, goals, and all that, and they had an average for all those, and that could be like where you fall into. So say you score 30 goals, get 30 assists, you get 60 points. The team could not pay you less than 3.5 million, but they could not pay you more than 6 million, let's say. You fall it, so you know your number is going to fall in there. It gives the player safety on a bottom side, but it gives them a cap on the top side. But then you score 150 points like McDavid. Yes, your top is 15 million and your lowest is 10 million, right? Like that's his window. But every year it's based on performance. You know that you can't go below this based on your performance, and you know you can't go above this. So that even works for fourth liners, right? Fourth liner comes out, scores 15 goals, only has 10 assists, but he gets like 25 points. Well, he knows that his base is now like 1.5 million and his max is like 3 million, but he knows he's not going to get a rookie contract, 800K or something thrown at him, and he's forced to take it or he's out of the league. Like there's some safety for these guys based on performance. What do you guys think about that style, but on a year-to-year basis?
yeah, I mean, I feel like that would help a lot of teams in like a good playoff rush, right? Like you could build a sweet team if it ran under that format. If you made a certain amount of points, well, that's going to determine your contract for the next year. And if it drops, well, then you're going to get a downgrade your next contract, right? If that team decides to decides to re-sign you for the next year. But I think it'd definitely be interesting to see. But I feel like teams would be switching around like insanely.
Yeah,
Well, even
too often, and also like teams could literally cherry pick these free agents the next year and literally just build an absolute dynasty of a team. Like you'd literally be playing, NHL franchise mode and have salary cap off almost, getting all these guys, Brad Marchand, Stamkos, the Ovechkins, the Crosby, like all in one team, right? I mean,
Well,
but that's where the minimum comes in. Like, so say every year Crosby and Ovechkin are free agents in their prime, right? But Ovechkin's minimum, scoring 50 goals and 110 points, was like he could make 12 million, and then his minimum was 8. So that no matter who goes to sign him in the league, they cannot pay him less than 8. So like that team still have to work it under the cap based on his performance. So even like a guy like Leon Draisaitl, right, coming second to McDavid in the points, say he gets traded to another team or whatever, free agency comes up, they can't just be like, okay, like we only have $5 million and we want to slide Draisaitl. And it's like, no, we got 130 points last year, 128
all
or whatever he
right,
got. Like,
all right. Tell me this then. What if that player purposely tanks his value for the upcoming season to know that someone's been watching him, say a scout for a certain team, then he knows that they'd be able to pay him, a little bit lesser just to get on that big team that he's been watching out for, and then he can go play with the guys he wants, and then he's just gonna have a breakout year with that dynasty of a team, right?
but
I see what you're saying.
I don't even think it would look like that though, Dallas, because I think if every player was on that year-to-year contract basis, I think every team would almost look different almost every year. I think that you're gonna have, maybe one, two, or three, maybe even four top guys, but I think your other rotating players are gonna change all the time.
Oh
And
yeah,
what
like your fourth liners, your third liners.
and what an opportunity for, so let's just compare, like, let's say Colorado and Arizona, right? They're in the same division. Third liner on Colorado's points would probably line up to be paid like a second liner in Arizona. So he would price himself out of Colorado, but then he would also get the opportunity to play in a place like Arizona, which would then make Arizona a better team. And it would almost parody the league a little bit better because guys would be playing above or below and they'd have to find the value fits, and every team would be fairly evened out. Like if you went through the whole list of every players, you have your 10 to 15 guys who are difference makers, and then you have your 15 guys who are going to lead their team in scoring, and then you have everyone else that's just kind of like second liners, third liners, fourth liners, and there's enough of a break off in between where it's so even that each team is going to get an even amount of guys based on the money breakdown.
Or you can go the MLB route and have that guy like not be able to hit a free agency period until the what is it, like 6 years of your first
Mm-hmm.
initial contract,
Yeah.
and then you can argue with your team to say, hey, I've done this and this right, could I either make more money or look to see for a trade? And if the league like agrees to it, well then the team would either be forced to pay him bigger on his next contract, or he could look for a trade elsewhere. So maybe
Yep.
even that would look good because at least then you have your stability as a player, right? You come into league, you're guaranteed your 6 years in
Yeah.
that system, and
Well,
then
and it's
after
also
that,
very common. It's also very common in the MLB too. You got typically your Dodgers and your Yankees, like they'll do these 1 year deals like for big bucks for these big name guys on the market. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're always doing this year after year, just signing a few little guys to big payroll contracts for just the 1 or even 2 years. But you know what? It just sometimes backfires, especially in the New York Yankees faces. But yeah, it's quite common because they financially with MLB, which is I don't know, they just can do it. Like they just can give bags on bags to these guys for 1 year deals. It is crazy.
Yeah, that one's based on owners. The owners can basically choose to just spend, and nothing
Yeah.
nothing the small teams can do about it. Another what if conversation we were going to have is about intentional injuries. So what I was throwing out there is, should players who intentionally injure other players be suspended until the injured player can return? Now I'm talking about intentional. not accidental, not freak accident. I'm talking about intentional, either like a full-on run from behind, intentional hit to the head, because these plays happen all the time, right? These intentional plays. And if the guy gets injured, so let's say Ryan Strome, who definitely did stick his knee out and take Kyle Connor out, that's out 6 to 8 weeks now. So Winnipeg's without him 6 to 8 weeks. What did Strome get? 1 game suspension, I think.
For a knee on knee,
Like,
yeah, that's a little.
yeah.
That's a little less, man.
Like,
Yeah.
Strome is not a dirty player. I'm not even trying to call him out as a dirty player, but he stuck his knee out intentionally to try and stop Kyle Connor. His knee then hit Kyle Connor's knee, which then injured him for 2 months essentially. Should Ryan Strome not be allowed to play for Anaheim, not get paid,
and be fined on top of it?
Yeah, and be fined on top. Which I guess for that suspension, like, you almost wouldn't want to suspend them, like, because suspension comes with no pay, so you don't want to almost say like no pay, but let's say 50% pay, right? So they get cut in half on their pay, because 2 months of no pay is a lot of money, but at the same time, you're missing the games, which matters. You're 2 months because you took a guy out and he was just playing the game of hockey, and here you are taking him out, and now he's gone and his team misses him. And let's be real, Winnipeg with Kyle Connor is a playoff competitive team. Anaheim, with or without Ryan Strome, is not going to be in the playoffs. So, like, it even adds more weight to it that Kyle Connor is out. So what are your guys' thoughts on intentional injuries only being suspended for as long as the player is out?
I agree with it, but I do think that, with that, I feel like you're going to have a couple of snakes in the grass. The guy who doesn't score a lot of points go and, try to force a star player to intentionally injure him. And, maybe he fakes an injury to take out a top player for, an important part of the season. Like, maybe someone tries to get McKinnon all heated, and McKinnon goes after the guy, and the guy fakes an injury or something.
Yeah.
So, like, that would kind of be skeezy, but I would like the idea of, like, that would, yeah.
I guess you have to hope that the protocols that the NHL training staff and the injury staff have to follow about players coming back and playing as soon as they're healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You would hope that the fourth liner who fought 6 times in the last 3 games all of a sudden takes a bump to the head and he pretends like he's concussed for 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Like, you would hope that the NHL concussion protocol and that the safety protocol would be like, okay, the player has passed the medical, he can return, and McKinnon would miss like 1 or 2 games. Not, so you're hoping that if the protocol's followed correctly, it wouldn't, in a sense, be able to be played with like that.
So then what would happen if it was a career-ending injury?
Well, like, if you Todd Bertuzzi, I never thought Todd Bertuzzi should have played again. Like, there was no way he should have played again. So if you Todd Bertuzzi a guy from behind, sucker punch him, and break his neck, then yeah, you should be done. Absolutely.
Like, done hockey for good, or like,
like
for the
out
year?
of the National Hockey League. Out of the National Hockey League, period. Because it's rare.
Period? Or do you think it would almost be like a couple, like a year or 2-year suspension or something? I don't know if I would ruin a hockey career. Like, yeah, you made a dirty
like,
play, but
that's the only time where someone has actually ruined another player's career in NHL history intentionally. The other one was actually McSorley on Donald Brashear when he two-handed him in the back of the head with his stick. So there's been 2 instances.
You want to talk about that, actually? There was just a suspension handed out by the Ontario Hockey League on the London Knights McHugh there. He received only a 3-game suspension for and it says it in the comment, attempting to injure a player. Connor Smith of the Peterborough Petes, he had his stick up and he pushed his head into the glass. Like, just full on, just shoved him. So, and he only got a 3-game suspension for that, which is bullshit. Like, that should be at least a 10-gamer right there. Exactly. No question.
And that's what I'm saying, because there's so many things that come in with first offenders and stuff, like, and those are kind of kids, so you're a little bit more lenient on the rules because they're kids, and kids have emotions, and sometimes they don't use them correctly and all that. But like when we're talking about adults, and yes, adults have emotions and they make mistakes and stuff, but like if you Todd Bertuzzi a guy, come up behind him, punch him in the back, punch him in the jaw from behind, break his neck as you fall on him, then why should you, for any reason, be allowed to come back in the league? And like we're talking like if you hit a guy, right? You hit a guy hard, it's suspect, but it's a part of hockey. Like it's a dirty hit, but it's a part of hockey, right? Like the speed of the game causes you guys to line up weird. You hit him and he hits his neck on the dashboard or something, and he breaks his neck. The player
Here's a good
should,
example.
Yeah.
Think of the Jacob Trouba on Trent Frederick last week, okay? They're both, there's a scrum in front of the net, you know? Jacob Trouba takes one good look at Trent, swings his goddamn stick at him to the head as if he was playing baseball, like attempting to injure like that. And the NHLPA is like, oh, we'll just give you a slap on the wrist. Oh, in my interview, I'm sorry, it won't happen again. Like dirty hits like that of attempting to injure, like you should be definitely reprimanded for that. Like there's, you know, in your head, you knew heat of the moment, maybe you should not have done it, but you did do it. And those are some very concerning hits and even plays. Like just attempting to injure coming full circle, I think there should be a lot more consequence for sure.
I will say Frederick got his revenge tonight because he fought Trouba. So
Yep.
I will say that, but didn't really land any punches, but he stood up for himself. But
Exactly.
Yeah. And that one would be more because Frederick wasn't mainly injured, it would be more of like a repeat offender suspension, which again, it should have been more than it was because he is a repeat offender for suspensions. But
Jacob Trouba's, yeah, he does a lot of dirty plays, man.
Well, then adding to that, then I think, have you guys seen that play with the Hurricanes goalie coming out to block a shot on
Brady Tkachuk?
Brady Tkachuk?
Yeah.
I think goalies should be fined for that then. There's no reason for you to come flying out of your net at a guy that's coming at you full speed and you're almost taking out his ankles.
Yeah, and Brady
Yeah.
Tkachuk was already at the hash marks. Like at that speed, he went flying into the boards. Like what if he went in there wrong, you know?
Right? Could
Like
have
he
broke your
could have broke
neck,
his
your
shoulder, his leg.
spine.
Yep.
It
I
should
think-
have been a
100%.
penalty. It should have been a penalty, or it should have been a retake of the penalty shot because, you know, I agree with goalies being able to challenge like that, the Dominic Hasek way, if you will, right? Diving out of the net. Absolutely. I have no problem with it. But the problem was not the fact that he dove out of the net. It was that he put his stick directly in his skates. That's the problem I had with it.
That's
so he tripped
dangerous,
him.
yep.
He tripped him. He tripped him on a penalty shot, which then stopped the goal because he stepped on his stick as he was releasing the puck when it hit his pad because he was forced to not be able to move, obviously. So the dive was a good play because he stopped it, but the poke check, he has to be more... Like, if every player on the ice is literally in the rule book, player must be in control of your stick, right? It doesn't matter if it's accidental high sticking. If you cut the guy, it's 4 minutes. So it doesn't matter if it's accidental tripping. The guy steps on your stick blade, it's 2 minutes. So why, on a penalty shot, was it not an extra penalty shot for Brady Tkachuk after that play? That's my question on it. I don't know if he did, because Kachekov's never done anything that deserves a suspension. He's not a Jordan Binnington type goalie, but I think he should have got another penalty shot right there in the game.
He should be out of the league.
Also, I don't think you should be doing that on a penalty shot. You shouldn't be coming that far out of your net and diving out like that. I could see maybe if it's in the middle of a game with everyone around in the pucks, you know, out in the open, no one has possession of it. Sure, maybe you can go out there for a skate and try to block it, but I don't like goalies coming at players with full possession, diving at their feet, causing them to go over them, you know, at a high
Think of the
speed.
World Juniors. Think of the World Juniors back in the day with Marc-Andre Fleury. He himself has also been guilty of doing that flying poke check fairly often too. So
Was it
I don't know, it
Hasek that
definitely
flipped Gabrick? Remember the Gabrick flip at the top of the circle? I forget what goalie it is, but he comes out and
just absolutely
takes
just
out
dummied
Gabrick.
him.
He does a full front flip. Like,
Yep.
and that wasn't a penalty, but that obviously was a different time in the league, but that wasn't even a penalty. So, like, yeah, goalies, they do need to be restrained a little bit more on that. You don't want to almost take away the diving, though, because the goalies are so limited to their movements anyways. Now they can't play the puck in this area and they can't do this. And so
But
you almost want to give them some freedom.
Dive within their own zone, though. There's no reason for them to come 10, 15 feet out of their net to make a play.
Yeah, it's almost like they need a second crease, like a spot.
Yeah, there should be a bubble in front of their crease, I think. To say, like, if you dive out past this mark, that's a penalty.
Yeah, especially if you take someone out. If you just go get the puck, you're fine. But if you're diving at a player, then absolutely outside of that zone, I think that would benefit the league as well. Because Brady Tkachuk
or even have
mad.
it where like that's the only spot you can come out to make a play, or as far as you can to come out and make a play. Other than that, I feel like if you go past that mark, a player should have the right to dummy you if you think you can come out and dummy them at the ankles.
Yeah, and don't blame Tkachuk.
Yeah, they brought in the trapezoid rule. Now they should bring in a new rule even for that for this sort of a incident. Like maybe even just what are your thoughts on making the paint just a little bit bigger too for the goalies?
No, I like the paint size because the paint the way that they have the paint is that if a player's in the paint when a shot goes in and they're touching the goalie, then the goal gets waved off, right? So if you expand the paint, it expands the no goal range, right? A goalie can come out even farther, take up more net, and also not be able to be touched by a player. So I think that will hinder it. But I think giving them a second dome of just keep it white, but just a second red line that makes it almost touch the bottom of the circles, but not quite, and just kind of close that gap. And that, like, this is as far as you can make a play on a player. You cannot be aggressively defending, I guess, as a goaltender. You can't be aggressively defending the player outside of that bubble and basically bodying them with a dive or a poke check or something like that. Like, you have to remain, you can come out to that bubble, but you have to move within your bubble in control of your body, not taking someone out outside of it.
Mm-hmm.
Almost reverse the rule of the player on the edge of the crease touching the goalie. It's like the goalie on the edge of the bubble touching the player.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fair.
Yep.
Because, a goalie's also putting himself at risk at that point as well.
Mm-hmm.
To catch 50-50.
But you're right. You don't want to see a guy like Tkachuk get injured. Well, and apparently now to Carolina's starting goalie, let's just keep it there real quick, talking about them sending Raanta on waivers. And it sounds like they're calling up a guy they just signed out of college. So their two goalies are going to be Kochetkov and a kid out of college. Like, what is going on with Carolina's goalie situation? And should the Edmonton Oilers immediately jump at the opportunity to get $1.5 million cap hit Raanta on a 1-year deal to back up Stuart Skinner?
Do they even have enough cap to take that? Yeah.
Well, they could trade someone away of a lower cap to open that up. But that's like, honestly, this is almost their golden gift. Like, Raanta has been a good goalie the last couple of years who is struggling this year only. To think that he can't go to a better team. Obviously, like, Carolina's been the best defensive team in the league for years, and all of a sudden they're really not good this year. But sending him to somewhere like Edmonton, who's kind of finding out their defensive structure now, just to help him and Skinner just as a 50-50 tandem, isn't that worth a shot?
You know what is worth a shot is that come deadline, I think a lot of teams should start inquiring about Arizona's Connor Ingram. He is right now in the Vezina talks, and he is having a career year. I think a team like Edmonton or even Carolina should be, on the phone with Arizona's GM.
So it sounds.
I don't think Arizona's thinking about
you don't think
trading
they're willing to part with him.
They just announced today that they're fielding calls for Vejmelka, even though Vejmelka's happy to be there. Sounds like Ingram's not the goalie that would leave if they were to trade a goalie.
Maybe if the price is right, but I don't see Ingram leaving, man.
I don't think he wants to either. He's finally getting a shot.
And he did just get a big shutout against San Jose as well, 1-0. Mm-hmm. So
his third of the year. I think you're right, because they're kind of rebuilding still. if the right deal came along, I don't see that they would pass it up. Like, Connor Ingram is not worth a first-round pick. So if someone came with a first-round pick, they'd be like, okay, we'll
that
take a
would be
first-round
like a
pick.
no-brainer, yeah.
Yeah, but if someone was like, hey, we have this backup goaltender and like a prospect who's about to overage in our system, and if we don't sign him, we're going to lose him for nothing anyways, will you take the deal? They'd be like, no. Because that wouldn't be worth it for them.
So what you're saying is that he's their new Mike Smith,
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
franchise
But
goalie.
I feel like it's a little early to be saying that one right now.
Maybe.
Let's keep it in the Metro, though. Let's go on to the Capitals, expecting to move from downtown Washington, D.C. to Northern Virginia, out of the blue, too. Like, not this was thought about, not this was talked about. And let's just kind of throw the shade back to Arizona about how they have fans that are just like absolutely punching their couches like, wow, these guys can find a new arena anywhere and we can't even get one.
Yeah, I mean the the Virginia governor was actually willing to, work with the Wizards and Capitals general manager to get the building built. But as for the DC district governors, in Washington, they're like, nah, we won't. I don't think we'll be willing to give you the 500 million in renovations for Capital One. But then they flipped the page and we're like, no, wait, hold the phone, we'll work with you. But then they're like, no, we're going with Northern Virginia. But everyone's making a huge fuss out of this. But honestly, guys, Northern Virginia is across the river from Washington, D.C. Like, they're only going 20 minutes down the road. Like, do not lose your minds over this. They're not going far.
Yeah, and they're probably still keeping the name, right? I'm sure they'll still be named the Washington Capitals now, and the Wizards.
I would assume so, right? Like, if you look at Google Maps, they're like this. They're so close. Like, they're literally just going 20 minutes down the road. And like, we also had a good conversation the other day. Like, teams that are named after a city, but yet they play like 20 miles out of city limits, right? Like the San Francisco 49ers, they play at Levi Stadium that is in San Jose. The Dallas Cowboys play how far outside of Dallas city limits? Like, New England Patriots, they play in Foxborough. Like, I think it's a safe bet to say that the Washington Capitals will remain the Washington Capitals.
Yeah.
I would think so. Yeah. St. Louis Blues. They fire head coach Craig Berube and they hire Drew Bannister as their new head coach. I don't know about the move. Is this some goofy way that they think that they're going to go from the bottom of the league again to win the Stanley Cup like they did when they hired Berube and fired Mike Yao? Like, to me, this doesn't seem like it's that same team that's able to do that. I don't know if firing their Stanley Cup winning coach was the solution to their team's success.
But San Jose is just a weird team. Like, it's just one of those teams where they could make the playoffs or they might not make the playoffs. They've always been that team that's just in the middle. Like, you could see them, you might not see them. So this could be the season where we might not see them. So maybe it was a little early to decide on firing the coach. But I do think that San Jose is also, like, they're getting a little bit older, though.
St. Louis. I know.
St. Louis, yeah.
I know you're thinking. Yeah, you said San Jose. I know you're thinking.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I know you're thinking of St. Louis when you're talking about it, but exactly, they're other than their Stanley Cup winning year, them and the Minnesota Wild are like the perennial middle of the pack teams in the NHL. They are just always third or fourth in their division every year, scraping by, and it's just like, are they actually going to get better? Are these massive contracts they gave to Thomas and Kyrou going to come through? Like, Thomas, I think, is, but if Kyrou's not scoring goals, which he did tonight,
8.1 million Kyrou is making, and he was just recently clapping back at Berube saying he's not my coach anymore. And the Blues fans took that to heart and started booing him, and then he got all emotional after. It's like, what do you expect for making snarky comments? And yet it doesn't help when you're not helping this team win in such a shitty situation. Like, St. Louis is definitely in a tough spot.
I got to counter this because here's what I think. First off, again, this comes back, like, I hate the media. I'm just going to say it again. I absolutely hate that they give these media guys free reign to ask whatever the heck they want. But they also have PR people telling them what to say. If they were told to just say no comment, like, hey, don't give a comment, like, the GM made the decision, like, just say no comment, or just say, hey, I got nothing to say on it, GM management decision or whatever, right? Like, we don't know what he was told to say, and he was, according, like, they don't say, like, oh, Braden Shen said he's the best coach he ever had when they asked him. Oh, they don't say, like, who's on defense? Is Krug there? Is Krug still there? Yeah, like Krug.
Yeah, Krug's still there.
Krug didn't say he's the best coach he's ever had. It seems like they only asked Jordan Kyrou, and then Kyrou gave what to me sounded like a PR answer, where it was just like, no comment, he's not my coach anymore. And like, not negative, also not positive. And then the fans went off on him. And like, you like to see a guy be a little bit tougher. But again, did you watch that whole interview after when he cried? He was grilled for 8 or 9 minutes on questions about the fans booing him, on questions about like him, what did he really think about Berube? And like, he was just grilled again with no one there, no PR person there handling questions. Like, why doesn't this happen like the NBA? The player comes to the podium, their PR person picks the question, and we've seen in NBA interviews, the PR person, if it's a dumb question that they're like, that is so far off base, you're an idiot.
Next question.
They'll just say next question. They won't even let the player answer it. So where is the NHL stepping in and giving their, what is he, 22, 23? Maybe he's 25 now. I don't know. But like, why are they not protecting these young guys? Bedard getting asked about his mom in an interview. Like, where's the protection for these young stars from these journalists who are honestly idiots and just going in there trying to get a story as best as they can?
Yeah, just their headline. Yep.
Exactly.
And don't twist your words too. It's
exactly. So who knows? Like, all he said, no comment. He's not my coach anymore. Okay, fair enough. He's focusing on the game. He's trying to get ready for the game, whatever. He's not in the headspace to have an interview. He doesn't want to get into a 5-minute conversation about his ex-coach when he's trying to prepare for the game. And then all of a sudden, the media makes him out as some disrespectful player who doesn't care about their only winning Stanley Cup coach. And like, all of a sudden now the fans are booing him, and then they grill him for 10 minutes after the game. And I think he just broke. He was just like, honestly, he was just like, man, like, piss off. Like, just shut up about this topic. Like, it was a comment.
Also, Blues fans are tough critics, man. They are tough crowd to please. So they also took that to heart, and they were like, yeah, that ain't gonna fly, Chief.
Well, you know what? A guy that should be answering questions like that should be the captain, or at least that's who the media should be attracting their attention to, is the captain for questions like that, not the young guys. Like, the young guy, like, was he even there for that cup-winning team?
No, he came the year after. Thomas was there, but Kyrou wasn't.
Yeah, so, I mean, what can Kyrou really have to say about the coach?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was only called up for like 20 games, and then he sent down back to the Rampage. So, like, he was there, but he wasn't there in the playoffs.
And like, that the media went to Kyrou too because he was kind of the point of emphasis, right? He's underperforming this year. Is it the coach's fault? Is it not? He's been benched. He's been put down the lineup a couple times. So then they go to him right away. Like, hey, do you hate your coach? Tell us you hate your coach. Glad he's gone, right? Like, he's the one who's been sitting you. He's the one who's been benching you. Like, we're just looking to get some kind of a nugget for a story. And they gunned straight for him because he was the only player of topic who's kind of the $8 million player that's been underperforming. So just like, let's call it Huberdeau, let's call it Gaudreau and Laine, right? Who do the media go to? The guys that are struggling, and they ask them the same stupid questions. Why do you think you're struggling? Why do you think this isn't going well? Do you think you deserve more ice time? And it's the same crap. And they wonder why NHL players give terrible answers in interviews that are just the same copy and paste.
Well,
because
think
they're
of
done
the other
answering them.
day. It was Connor Bedard versus Connor McDavid, and in his interview, Connor McDavid's like, "I've answered this question for the thousandth time," because they were
Hmm.
asking, "Oh, what advice are you gonna give to Connor Bedard tonight?" Like it's just the same song and dance in these same interviews. Like I know these journalists are trying to make their money at the end of the day with getting these headlines from these players, but man, like they are just a pack of hyenas out there. Like just let the man breathe, you know?
Yeah, and Bedard had what? He played 25 games at that point in the NHL. Like it wasn't like
Yeah,
it was his first five, like his first game versus Crosby. Yeah, that was something where Crosby gives him a bit of advice, I'm sure, at some point, like texts him before the game or whatever, right? Being a first overall pick. Hey kid, you're playing me. Like we were in a commercial together. We did off-season stuff in the summer. Like I'm sure there's a bit of a relationship there. So he's like, hey, have fun tonight, play hard, right? Like stuff like that. But 25 games in the season, McDavid's worried about getting the Oilers back in the playoffs. He's not worried about Connor Bedard playing hockey on his 25th game.
Right?
like
And
I
nobody
understand
should
it's
other than his teammates.
yeah,
Exactly.
Like, no one should be
but
worried about how the rookie's doing or give them any advice. Like, they're worried about bringing their own team to the playoffs.
right. Like I get it, it's in your contract to do all these interviews and whatnot, but like there should be a line drawn, and especially how the media handled the whole Connor Bedard and his mom and all the rumors with Corey Perry. Like that was just handled so awfully, and I honestly feel so terrible for his family and just what they were all going through. Like the NHL media just needs to step off. Like there's a time and a place, and they just handled that whole situation so wrongly.
Well, let's
Just
even talk about
harping.
today on social
Absolutely
media.
harping.
Did you guys see like all the stuff about Chychrun last night because he went down the Dallas Stars tunnel at the end of the second period with the team,
Yeah.
and it blew up? Oh, he's traded. No, he had a huge laceration on his cheek, and he got like 15 plus stitches or whatever. So he was told by their team, their trainer,
Physician.
because
Yeah.
yeah, to go see Dallas's team doctor to get stitches. So he was just going to see the team doctor. And again, social media goes rampant and loses their mind over, oh, he got traded, oh, wrong tunnel. And it just takes off. But again, like, where are they saying, hey, wait? Or so, like, there's no PR people, it seems, that are taking control of these teams and, like, making sure that things look right from a fan standpoint, from a media standpoint. Like, who is in charge of NHL media, and why are they doing such a bad job of controlling what's going on that makes them look like a weird league or something weird is
It's the
happening?
Wild West out there, man, I swear.
Well, and like,
Exactly.
dude, there was no body language that indicated any frustration or like he got traded. Was no conversation. They all walked out of that tunnel normal. You
Exactly.
know, like the Dallas guys weren't bothered that he walked down there. Like there was nothing to indicate anything, and fans just went wild.
Yeah. So back off, fans. Settle down. All right? Like, leave rookies alone. Leave their families alone. Let guys with massive stitches in their face or gashes in their face go get healed up. Like, just let guys play hockey, for goodness sakes. It's getting tiresome.
Or just wait for someone to say something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Quit overthinking the situation.
Like,
They're
at
the
least
ones
he
on
was,
the ice. They know what's going on.
yeah, at least he was good about it this morning and was like, here's why I went down the tunnel. Thanks for the laugh this morning or whatever, right? Like, at least he was good about it. But it's like, again, why does it got to go that far? Now, it's funny from like, if you're just doing it for like a meme, but it actually gained like speculation, which is where the problem is. Who cares if it's a meme, right? Like, obviously, seeing one guy go down the wrong team's tunnel, like that can be used for so many different wrong direction, wrong way, right, wrong team things. Like, that's funny. Those are memes, whatever. But it's the actual speculation that they're trying. Oh, Trouba traded to Dallas. Like, that is the dumb stuff. Like, who was his name? Elliot Friedman. Like, I love Elliot Friedman, but he did say Jacob Trouba has been traded to the Dallas Stars in the second intermission, and then he put a little subtweet and was like, just kidding or whatever, right? But it's like, that stuff just takes off to the people that don't see the just kidding, and
Dude, I don't
it
think
just
Dallas could
loses its
handle
mind.
Chychrun's contract.
No, they couldn't, but
God, no.
yeah. But still, like, yeah, things are just getting out of control in the media. and they just need to figure out a way to control that. It's to me, it's solely on the NHL and their teams. They are not protecting their players from the media. That is the main thing that I'm seeing. David Perron suspended 6 games for his cross-check on Artem Zub after Dylan Larkin's unfortunate knockout situation where he did get knocked out and fell very scarily limp to the ground, like just out cold.
Yeah.
But then Perron turned around, saw Zub, who he was just battling with in front of the net, and then Zub tripped over Larkin, and he saw Zub on top of Larkin and just immediately went to Zub and cross-checked him in the face when it was Joseph and I think the guy's name was Kelly who inadvertently hurt Larkin together. Like, I think 6 games was well warranted for that. Like, they finally got something right here on a suspension basis.
Like an intentional attack. Like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he turned right around and took 3 to 4 steps and cross-checked him right in the side of the head on purpose in a rage.
Yeah,
Exactly.
warranted minimum 6 games, if not 10 games, you know? Like, you're attempting to injure a player. That's malicious.
Like, based on, now that we're talking about the actual NHL suspension rules, so based on a guy who doesn't actually have a suspension history, 6 games for cross-checking is pretty normal, right? Like, for a first-time offender like that. So, I didn't have a problem with it. I thought, okay, Zub didn't really get hurt. It was just intent to injure. It was a dumb play. And, you know, like I heard someone else say, like, you know, he probably just went into that hearing and was like, yeah, I just tell me what I get. Like, I got kids, I could stay home for a week or something, right? Like, you know, he'll just stay home and hang out with his family mid-season before Christmas, and then he'll come back after the break. Like, it's not like it's going to hurt him at this point in his career, but it's worth the penny out of the pocket.
Fair enough.
Now to a guy who's making his NHL debut, Mark Johnstone for Pittsburgh. Let's go through his little bit of his career here, because this is a story that you struggle to find guys who have made it from nothing, and this is a story that you really want to emphasize when you're like, wow, this is a guy who made it from nothing. So Mark Johnstone is a guy who did not make the UCHL at 19 years old, but then went on to captain the Chicago Steel of the USHL the next year at 20. He went on to play 4 seasons at Sacred Heart. I don't actually even know what university or college that is, but he was a captain for 2 of them. Right away out of that, he was cut from his first ECHL tryout. He then later signed for the ECHL Newfoundland team and then earned a contract with the Toronto Marlies from there, signed with the Penguins organization, and now made his debut at 27 years old. So you really got to give him credit for battling through the whole time to make it to the NHL. These are stories that and maybe he'll never play another game again. Who knows, right? Like, he's probably not a solidified NHLer. I don't even know if he stayed up. Dally, did he stay up with the Penguins? Do you know?
No, I didn't see him at all tonight against the Toronto Maple Leafs.
So it could have been a one-time thing, and they were just rewarding a guy who's worked hard to get to this point in his life. But, I mean, you have to commemorate it for kids out there who are looking for stories of guys who didn't take the traditional route, getting drafted, all this. Like, he didn't make the USHL, then made Chicago, which is a well-known USHL team, and captained them. But then 4 years at Sacred Heart, which I've never heard of that. Like, taking whether that's Div 1, Div 2, I don't know what that is, and then starting in the ECHL. Like, there's only a handful of guys that have come up from the ECHL. Yanni Gourde is one of them. He started in the ECHL and then got his rise to Tampa. This Mark Johnstone, and then was Gensel? No, Gensel didn't play ECHL. He just played AHL, right?
Yep. Uyghur played ECHL.
Uyghur. Like, yeah, there's very few guys that make it to the NHL and have consistent careers that played in the ECHL. So you have to give credit where credit's due whenever that does come up.
Hot take, though, boys. Jake Gensel, I think he's walking this upcoming year.
Yeah, he's playing well.
Was he called up for, like, a certain reason? Like, were they just, like, out of players kind of thing? Or
yeah, it was injury related.
No.
I believe. So who knows if they threw him a bone or what. But I think that was someone got hurt. I forget who just got hurt for them, but
Brian Rust.
Maybe it was isn't. I think Johnstone was a D though. I think he's a D. Might not be. I don't know. He was number 9. I'm not sure. That's what number he wore. Big news out of the CHL though, with Rimouski getting awarded the 2025 Memorial Cup. So we were talking about this very early to award them, considering that Saginaw didn't find out until the Blazers hosted the Memorial Cup in Kamloops last year. It was announced then, and now all of a sudden they've already announced the Memorial Cup before Christmas this year. So what are your guys' thoughts on, well, let's say Saginaw this year and Rimouski next year as the next two places?
Well, Saginaw, I understand. I mean, they got Misa, Michael Misa, so like I think obviously they'll build around them. But like, I don't know if Rimouski's got a whole lot of top guys on that team right now to look like an exciting host.
Now, Dallas, you did say only 2 teams bid. Who were those? Who's the other team?
Yeah, so there was also the Shawinigan Cataracts there that put in a bid. Now this has been going on for quite a few months now, but it's like, you know, only the 2 teams, like it just doesn't make sense. Like there could have been Moncton, there could have been Cape Breton, there could have been Halifax again, or there could have been Val-d'Or, Rouyn-Noranda. My whole thing with this though is like you'd think as an owner in the Quebec Maritimes Hockey League that you would put the money into your arena to come up to CHL standards to be able to host the Memorial Cup because it would literally pay for itself back. They
Yeah.
kept talking on the radio here, Radio NL 610 AM, how the Memorial Cup at Kamloops brought in millions upon millions of dollars of revenue to the city of Kamloops. Now you'd
Mm-hmm.
think as an owner in Quebec League, like, hey, you know, we could have a potential shot at hosting a Memorial Cup, a team who has never done so, and we could bring in a lot of money to our community. You know what I'm saying? Like, it, I think it was just a lost opportunity for a lot of the other teams having 2 teams, Rimouski and Shawinigan, having hosted within the last 14 years, Rimouski in '09 and Shawinigan in 2012. Like, I think a lot of teams missed up on a potential opportunity. I like Dakota's point, though. Rimouski doesn't have a lot to offer as it comes to talent. Now, they are 2 years out, so they could build within their own system, or they could trade in guys to come on in, but I do love Saginaw's chances this year. They're looking very good, but it's definitely the star-studded talent that these host cities, you know, produce and show off as they're in the tournament. But I don't really see Rimouski having a whole lot going into 2025, boys. Like, I think they're
I
going to be
mean,
one of the weakest host cities in recent memory.
a cool thing would be if Rimouski hosted, or will, since they are hosting, would be to have Crosby do like the initial puck drop or something. I think that would be a
Mm-hmm.
cool thing.
That would be.
Yeah, if the
You know what?
NHL could line up so the Penguins are in Montreal around that time, so then he can just quickly hop over and
Yeah,
You know what?
drop the puck.
Yeah, you know what Rimouski should have done though is what we were treated to, boys. I remember it was game 6 of the Western Conference Finals, Kamloops versus Seattle, and Shane Doan, Jerome McGinley, Mark Recchi, they all came to center ice to announce the Memorial Cup. I think what Rimouski should have did at one of their recent home games was had both Alexis Lafreniere and Sidney Crosby come to center ice to announce it for them.
That would have been cool.
Obviously, depending on scheduling for these players, because obviously they have to play in the NHL, but it would have been something cool, right?
I think, yeah, you would hope that they know something we don't about their prospect pool, about who's coming up next year, about who knows, right? Like something's going to happen in Rimouski, whether they're guaranteeing like we're willing to trade our next 10-year picks to make sure our team's competitive, like whatever they're willing to guarantee. Obviously, they guaranteed it and got the bid because if Shawinigan was the better pick, obviously Shawinigan would have got the bid. So,
And yeah, and like I alluded to, like a lot of the barns out east, like they're not up to standard to host a Memorial Cup, but like I said, you'd think they'd renovate to be able to host, but like a team like Baie-Comeau, Drakkar, and Rouyn-Noranda, or even the Quebec Remparts, they're in the Videotron Center, who can hold up to 18,000 fans. Like,
And they
yes,
just
they've
won
hosted.
last year.
Oh, exactly. Like, just they're total missed opportunity in my opinion. Like, just Rimouski and Shawinigan. Like, I don't know.
Well, that's one thought too. Like I know, like if you're making the rules based on, let's say, our 1990 Blazers, whereas like if I'm saying if the host team or if the team wins, they should host the next year, right? Like give them that opportunity. So I get like the 1990s, the Blazers would have hosted like 3 years in a row, even though they did get one of those years to host because of how good they were. But like, um, what do you think about the winning team hosting? The question is, are they going to be as good next year? For sure, but at least you kind of are playing to host as well and win a chance to earn that money for your team instead of just a bid. But I get why like they still obviously keep it the way they do, where it's different. They want to keep it different league every year so that it's not double
Yeah, it's fair
backing
that
in one
way.
area.
Yeah, it just rotates
Yeah.
every third year for your league, right? But in 2026, we're getting the Memorial Cup back out west. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
who would you guys say should be willing enough to be able to host?
Well, around that time, you said 2026.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm saying Kelowna.
that's going to be heavily built around Medicine Hat with Gavin McKenna. I would like to see PG host right now with the team they have.
Oh yeah.
Um,
A lot
I
of their
think
guys will be there
Kelowna.
too at that time.
It's going to go to Kelowna, that's my guess, because remember they lost theirs in COVID?
yeah.
They lost theirs, and then the very next year, instead of it going back to Kelowna, they gave it to us instead in Kamloops, and now Saginaw, and then
Or
Rimouski. So,
or even Edmonton.
mm-hmm. Or a United States team, could be a U.S. team.
Yeah, that too. Like Tri-Cities or something.
I
Seattle even.
honestly would love to see, like you said, Dakota, the Medicine Hat Tigers,
No, I
because
think yeah,
it'd be
McKenna. I think
perfect.
even Edmonton with. I think they should. If Joe Iginla turns out to be an insane prospect for them, I think if Edmonton's going all out that season, Medicine Hat probably will for McKenna's sake, and I think that would be an insane battle between
And that
Medicine and.
would that be Teja's 20
20 year, yeah, because he's draft
overall year?
eligible in 24.
So if they traded for Tej in Edmonton and had Joe and Tej basically, spearhead a team, that would be a big story as well. Because obviously these Iginla boys, they're going to be pulling a lot of attention the next couple of years, as we've seen Tej already do, and now Joe just playing his first game and getting a point. Like it's going to be something to build around if you get both.
It's funny. Teach had 18 points in 41 games last year with Seattle, and now he's got in 20 games 41 points. Like it's just Teach is on a whole new level for Kelowna. He is definitely going to be a future piece for them. It would be awesome to see if the two of them got to play together, the brothers. Like we got to see the Kachuk brothers, in the NHL now. It would be awesome to see the Iginla brothers now heading into the NHL in a couple years, tearing it up too. Like we are definitely witnessing something special right now. And yeah, like I said, congrats to Joe on his first Western Hockey League point, and to his brother Tej there. Yeah, he's killing it for Kelowna. Congrats to them both.
All right, let's jump back to the NHL here. The Bruins have placed Jacob Zboril on waivers, and they were trying to accommodate his request to see if another team has interest in adding him. And honestly, I missed it. Did you guys see if Zboril went anywhere? I don't think
he has.
anyone
No,
picked him up. So obviously they couldn't trade him, I'm assuming, because that's kind of your last ditch effort is to drop him for nothing. If you can't even get like a 7th round pick 5 years from now. So they were seeing if someone wanted to give up nothing for him and take him on, and just didn't seem that way for him. And what an unfortunate situation for a really high potential defender this draft year.
Well, he was 2015, wasn't he?
I think so. Did he
That's
slip to the second round?
No, that was when they got DeBrusque, him, and Bjork.
Wasn't it Senshin? Zachary Senshin.
Right, Senshin.
Yeah. So that was a bad draft for them. DeBrusk is okay now, but other than that, that's a tough draft. All right, on to my Lightning for a little bit. We got quite a bit of news here. So obviously Stamkos scored 4 goals for the first time in his career to become the 7th fastest player to 200 power play goals in NHL history, only behind Lemieux, Hall, Ovechkin, Andreychuk, Esposito, and Ciccarelli. Kucherov became the 8th fastest winger to 50 points in NHL history, only behind Bossy, Brown, Yager, Curry, Stevens, Ciccarelli, and Yager a second time on that list. So lots of stuff being broken in Tampa. I honestly couldn't believe, even though I'm a huge Stamkos fan, like it was his first time scoring 4 goals. And that it's honestly funny that their franchise record is 4 goals that was set the very first game of their history when Brian Bradley scored 4 goals in the first game. And no one has beat it in this whole history of Tampa. No one has scored more than 4 goals, and now Stamkos just tied it for the first time in his career, so I was happy to see that for him. Happy to see him get the 200 power play goals after all his injuries and stuff. He's actually starting to show up in some of the history books, which is nice that he's able to catch up. And then obviously Kucherov, he's just on an unreal pace this year. He's playing way above the output of the whole team, and he's just really a dominant player this year again to start off. But the major thing I wanted to talk to you guys about was it's almost impossible, the statistics of what Tampa's doing in the second periods. If you've watched or you've listened to Tampa Bay games, you know that they are actually the worst second period team in the league. And since November 28th, they have been outscored 17-0 in the second period. That even includes a game versus the Dallas Stars when they won 4-0 in a shutout. But they also didn't score in the second period of that game, and they got outshot 10-4 that period. So they're always getting outshot in the second period. They're getting outscored in the second period. And it's becoming this crazy statistic that it's like, no matter where they are, no matter what time zone they're in, no matter what time of the day it is, it doesn't matter. The second period, they just cannot play hockey. In the first 10 minutes, they're letting in 2 to 3 goals every single game. It happened tonight for Calgary. 3 goals in the second period, all in 10 minutes. It happened in a 7-minute span, but it only happened actually in a 4.5-minute actual time allotment that they let in 3 goals tonight. They let in 3 goals the other night versus Edmonton. They let in 2 goals the other night versus Vancouver. Like, I don't know what your guys' thoughts are, but this is just something that I've never seen this consistently bad, but only in one period, because then versus Edmonton, they score 5 goals in the third. Like, it makes no sense to me.
Hey, man, just be happy you're higher in the standings there, boss, man.
They are...
I was just going to say, man.
Ass.
Have you seen where they are in the Atlantic? They're 5th.
Yeah, they're just ahead of Buffalo, are they not?
Yeah, they're closer to Ottawa at the bottom than they are to Toronto in 4th.
Buddy, at least you're not fighting for last place, though, you know?
I mean,
they're close.
In the league standings,
they're
17th.
Yeah. So they're still on the bubble for now. But like it's just one of those, like, I'm just trying to see you guys, like, what do you guys think is happening just in the second period? It's like, how do you think a team is this consistently bad just in one period?
I think they're too comfortable. I don't know. They just their worth ethic is just not the same. Maybe they're just sitting a little too comfortable going into the second frame, and then the other team just gets a jump. Like, think of Calgary. They just won 4-2 tonight against Tampa. They just jumped on them.
Calgary's also a perfect example of a team that's like that, though. Tampa is almost in the same category as Calgary in the aspect of being a comeback team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Calgary for the longest time has been a third period comeback team, I think. Or at least every year you hear about them being a third period comeback team, and then they talk about, we need to get the starting goal and keep the lead. And Calgary, the last few games, has been getting the starting goal, opening lead, and then third period they blow it. So I was surprised that Calgary even held that lead off Tampa in the third period.
There was even a game a couple weeks ago. I forget who they were playing, but in the first period, they let a goal in the first 5 minutes. Then the second period, they let in 2 goals in the first 5 minutes. And the third period, they let in 2 goals in the first 5 minutes. And it was something, I did the math. It was something like 11 minutes and 43 seconds of game time, they let in 5 goals. And basically the other 49 minutes of the game, they didn't let in a goal. Like, they lost 5 goals in 11 minutes of game time, all at the beginning of periods. Like, their first 5 to 10 minutes of periods, same as tonight, 10 minutes in, 3 goals in the second period for Calgary. Last night it was 12 minutes and it was 3 goals for Edmonton. Like, they come out as flat as can be. And I don't know what these guys, like, it's past the point of statistically beatable. It's like always happening all year long. Even if they do score in the second, they're not the first team to score, or they're getting outscored 3-1, 2-1. They haven't won a second period in goals for versus against in I don't know how long. It just seems like they cannot figure out the second period no matter what the situation. It's just weird to me. I just don't understand it.
I don't want to say maybe Tampa's showing their age.
I'd agree to that.
They bring it all out in the first, and they can't do anything in the second for them to gas themselves in the third for a desperate comeback.
Yeah,
I don't want to say it's eventually Tampa's going to have to come down to, is our age showing?
absolutely. Oh yeah, they may be the oldest team in the league. Them maybe it's Pittsburgh, but yeah, Pittsburgh's old. But Tampa's right there with them.
Average age is like 30.3.
Yeah, so Tampa's right there with them.
But even them, they're showing it 100%.
Yeah, like, well, let's go into Pittsburgh. I mean, I know you got a lot to say about what's going on there, and they're 7-0 loss today. Unfortunately, I can't believe you're repping them right now, and it's a sad time.
Here's where I'll tie in your Tampa talk to Pittsburgh, because these are two teams who are formidable. Everybody knows, okay? But they are desperately trying to stay relevant right now in the league. They're two dynasties who have shown day in, day out that they can prove themselves on the ice. But you know what? Lately, they have not, okay? These are both recent Stanley Cup champions. The only two teams who have went back-to-back in recent memory, other than the Detroit Red Wings, all right? But going on to Pittsburgh, they cannot catch a break for the life of them. Like, just absolutely atrocious. Like, they lost 7-0 tonight against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Brutal. One of the worst games I've watched in a long time. Like, they just can't keep their legs underneath them. It's terrible. Toronto's all over them, and their age is 100% showing. You think Tampa's age is showing? Pittsburgh loves to gas themselves out. They could look so good on paper. They're not. They're not good on the ice.
So what's your thoughts on the Karlsson trade now?
My thoughts on the Karlsson trade is that they definitely didn't overpay for him, but it's definitely not panning out what they wanted. Ask any
was
fan.
That what they needed?
No.
I think Karlsson's producing at what he can. I think he's still good in that aspect, but I don't think he's what they needed, per se.
What about their power play, though? 0 for 36 in the last 13 games. And obviously tonight they were 0 for whatever, so that extended. So, like,
they were 27th, I think, ranked in the league. It was horrible. And then going into this game, they're 0-37.
Yeah, so let's call them 0 for 40 after tonight, because who knows how many power plays they had tonight. Like, their literal top power play is Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Karlsson, and Gensel. How is that power play line not getting it done? And I've heard, and I agree with this, why don't you just throw the fourth line and the third line D pair out there with one less guy on the ice and just let them bang and crash and just get something ugly for the team? Like, just put pucks at the net, stand two guys who are ugly as can be in front, and they don't care if they get hit in the face with the puck, and just try and get one off a shin, off an elbow. It doesn't matter. Just
look for a deflect,
a power play goal.
They were looking
to get the team one.
Riley, they were looking so desperate in that fucking game. It was unbelievable. Karlsson himself, going back to him, he only has 21 points in 29 games. Okay, he's starting to slow down after that, Norris caliber year last year with San Jose. But, Evgeny Malkin, Sidney Crosby, even Chris Letang. Chris Letang was in the box for 4 minutes. They were taking penalty after penalty against the Maple Leafs. They are playing some desperate hockey. Okay, they're hardly keeping it 500 on the year. You got a team, like we said last episode, a Philadelphia Flyers team who stated and claimed they're rebuilding, and yet you got the Pittsburgh Penguins, one of the best teams, in the last decade, are now like what, 5 positions below them in the Metro, and they just pulled
Yeah.
off one of the biggest trades in Erik Karlsson, and yet they can't even get to a 500 record right now. Like it's brutal to watch. And I think that come deadline, maybe Kyle Dubas might be even a conservative seller, man. Like he might even just salvage the season and say, okay, just take him. Jake Gensel's
Yeah.
coming up on a contract year. Maybe they're not going to want to pay him. Get some good picks for him. Brian Rust, even. Like both Tampa
Yeah.
and Pittsburgh right now are in the same boat. And I'm sure a
I
lot
would
of
say
people can
Pittsburgh's a
agree
little
they are
worse.
playing desperate hockey. Their age is showing, and they're trying to stay relevant in the league right now.
I would say Pittsburgh's definitely a little worse off, but I agree. Like, Tampa still has Vasilevsky. They still have Kucherov scoring at this incredible pace. They still have Stamkos collecting goals, points. They have Hedman, who's playing well, and their power play's third in the league. So, they're still playing well, but they just fall asleep at times, whereas Pittsburgh seems to be deep-rooted issues throughout the whole lineup where they just can't win.
Yeah. And then they hardly have anyone to call up. Like you don't have any star-studded prospects coming up, in their farm. It's been a few years since we've seen one of those, But yeah, the age is definitely showing.
One, it's not like they can try to continue to be a playoff team. I mean, they have under $1 million in cap still, and it's not like they could give up a bunch of prospects and be like, you know what, let's get some more stars on this team. Like they're kind of screwed with what they got.
You're essentially stuck with what you have, or either that, or you're gonna have to sell, boys. Like I don't know what else to tell you. It's honestly sad to watch. Like Sidney Crosby and Malkin and Letang, I don't think they're gonna get their fourth cup, boys. I really don't think it's gonna happen.
Keeping it with the age of the Penguins, though, this is a cool stat, but also a stat of how old Crosby is. He just played against the very first kid that he had in his Penguins Kids Learn to Play program in Logan Cooley. So Crosby was in the league a couple years before he started this Penguins Learn to Play program, and now he's playing in the NHL against a kid who was in that program. That means you are old. When your foundation has now a child who started playing hockey in that foundation come up and play you in the NHL.
In Pittsburgh, yeah.
Yeah. So
that was wild. That was a cool moment, I think, at center ice for both Logan Cooley and Sidney Crosby. That was a really cool moment.
Surprised he just didn't call him Dad. Thanks, Dad. You helped me get here. Appreciate it. But yeah, no, it was a nice moment that was really definitely milked by the Penguins and a lot of league guys. But that was a big media topic, but that's a good media topic, right? Crosby started foundation. The foundation helped kids. This one kid made it to the NHL. That's a story that they need to be pushing when available more often over these other news outlets. Into more bad news for Laine, who's out 6 weeks with a clavicle injury. I guess he's not going to get his revenge on Rasmus Anderson in January, like you thought he was. I can't wait to play Calgary in January. I got it marked on the calendar. Yeah, well, you barely were playing up till now, but now you're really not going to be playing.
Guy's scared.
Breaks his own clavicle. But yeah, so abysmal year for Columbus. My vote, I'm randomly throwing this in there. My vote for next coach to get fired. Even though they already fired a coach.
I think Mike Sullivan's on the chopping block myself for Pittsburgh too.
Dubas just backed him publicly, so I don't think he's going anywhere.
He's a phenomenal coach, don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I have a sneaking suspicion. But it's not always the coach's fault, just like how we said with Woodcroft, right? It's always not the coach's fault, They're not the ones going out there and playing. They do make the lines, but they ain't the ones going out there and shooting the goals.
I mean, Edmonton has been better under the new coach, though. Yeah,
a lot. Yeah.
You wonder if it's more coffee than it is. What's his name? Chris Knobloch. There, that's his name. You wonder if it's Coffey's defensive work with the defenseman instead of Dave Manson's rather than actually having Knobloch over Woodcroft. You know, like you just wonder what the actual difference is there. But either way, it's Edmonton's doing better. But yeah, for me, I think it's Columbus. Like literally tonight, they're so in the dumps. They're so rebuilding. Mid game, Fantilli thrown fourth line.
Ouch.
Like what is this coach doing? He's scratching Johnston. He's scratching Laine. He's scratching Gaudreau. He's throwing Fantilli on the dude, you suck. Your team is terrible.
Well,
Accept it.
And it's insane that they even beat Toronto the other night. Like, they had 5 goals unanswered against Toronto, and then they let Toronto come back and almost beat them.
I know. And it's just like what the MO of this coach has literally been worse than Babcock. Columbus is literally saying, like Kekalainen, we're bringing up all these young guys. We're getting these young guys in there. And this coach is like, yeah, I'm sitting them all. Scratching them. Sending Johnson to the minors.
That sounds like a Daryl Sutter move.
And I get that Kekalainen's a part of sending Johnson to the minors, so he's obviously agreeing with Vincent when Vincent says, I don't want this kid here right now, I want him in the minors. But it's like, fire both. If I'm the president and I'm like, what are we doing? We just spent the 3rd overall pick on Adam Fantilli and we're putting him on the 4th line because he's making mistakes as an 18-year-old? Like,
give him the most playing time so he knows how to learn to adapt to the culture and the playing styles of the NHL, right? You think you'd want him to play the most minutes during a game. You're going to punish him just because he's a rookie trying to adapt to the NHL? That just doesn't logically make any sense, man.
And I'm all about, like, if he's really not playing well and you're trying to give him instruction on the bench, like, you sit the kid, right? Like, fair enough. Whatever. Right? But to demote him to the 4th line, like, no, you sit him a shift or two. You say, hey, you do that again, right? You're sitting again. But it's like, okay, back out with your line. You go prove me wrong. Vincent's not like that at all. Or Vincent Pascal. He's literally just like, or Pascal Vincent, I was right, sorry. He's just like, oh, you screwed up. Down the roster you go. Oh, you screwed up 2 games in a row. You're out of the lineup. Oh, you're not performing the way we want you to perform, even though we have the worst team in the league. Okay. You're done. Like, I would put them below San Jose. At least San Jose is like this Cinderella story that works their bag off. All you hear out of Columbus is rookie scratched, rookie sent down the lineup, star scratched, other star scratched. Like, there's no positivity in that organization whatsoever. And I bet Fantilli's just like, I wish I didn't get picked now.
Well, and I've seen somewhere saying that, like, pretty much no one's off the table for a trade.
Even Gaudreau. That's crazy.
Yeah. Does that include Fantilli?
Probably not. Like, I feel like Fantilli's probably untouchable, but
you would hope so. But, like, again, if I'm the president, it's time. Kekalainen, you're gone. He's won 1 playoff round as a general manager there. 1. It's been like 13 years.
I have a hot take. I feel like the next franchise to move would be the Columbus Blue Jackets. I really do. That's my hot take. I have a feeling somewhere down the road we're going to see the Columbus Blue Jackets make a move.
Not before Arizona.
I don't think Columbus moves, man. I don't.
You think it's working?
Oh, it might not be working, but I don't see that franchise moving.
Here's the thing. They survived the post-Rick Nash. That was their test.
And that was the last time they were good, man.
Yeah.
Well, no. There was a Ryan Johansson era where they were good-ish.
But when they lost Rick Nash, their ticket sales plummeted to the bottom of the league. And it was not looking good for them. And now they've kind of come back up. They were exciting. You know, they beat Tampa in 2019. They were now getting all these young prospects that were playing well, and it was looking good. And then this year is just, to me, it starts with management and coaching. Like, get rid of them because everyone seems miserable to play there. You're not going to get Gaudreau and Laine to play better under, like, again, people have to remember too, this was Babcock's chosen assistant coach who was going to work his system and his coaching style. Like, it's not what they need. They need a wholesale change at coach.
Fire selling
Yeah.
can help you, boys.
Well, no, and then like Columbus is like the players they got, they're almost like a flashy team, right? I feel like these guys need the playing time if they want the best out of their players.
And they have a
Exactly.
ridiculously good farm, too. Their farm team, all their prospects are amazing. They have a good prospect pool. You should be giving these guys the playing time and all that.
Even they scratched Juracek the other day. Like,
Another rookie,
why?
isn't it?
Yeah. Their second or third overall or fifth overall, whatever pick he was last year or the year before. Whatever Slavkovsky's draft was, he was that one. But 2021, I guess. But yeah, like when so that's Johnston who's been scratched, Juracek who's been scratched, and Fantilli who's been sent to the fourth line, which is basically sat, right? Like, when is it not the 18 and 19-year-old kids' fault that the team is not good?
Right.
Like, when does it go above them? Like, it seems like they're blaming them for
So
the
what,
problem.
you're not going to blame your superstar players too, making $8 million that are not performing too?
Well, they
You're just gonna
definitely
blame
are.
your
Well,
rookies?
yeah, no,
They
they
definitely
have.
are.
They've benched Kucherov and Laine, so
But I'm
As
just
they
talking about
should.
like the coach and general manager. Like, when is it their fault that the team's underperforming? You guaranteed fire Kekalainen, fire Pascal Vincent, bring in Jay Woodcroft. Completely different team. A free-flowing offensive style with no pressure to win. Jay Woodcroft takes that team and flies easily. They don't
So
need
now
a
as in,
coach in there right now. Oh, sorry?
I was going to say, so now you're saying from the owner's perspective, like, let's get rid of the GM, go from, just down the pyramid, just
Exactly. Clean
house.
house. Yeah, like the
Yep.
season's toast. It's over.
Top to bottom, boys. You're
well, I don't
gone.
think it's the players, dude. I think all these players they want to be here.
Yeah.
Like Goudreau left Calgary for a reason. He wanted to be closer to home. He got it with Columbus.
He could have chose New Jersey.
Fantilli made it known he wanted to go to Columbus, so the players want to be there.
Exactly. They need a lot to change there, and it's not the players. That's for sure. Expectations need to be lowered, but it's not the players. Let's go to some more locker room drama, though, with Rantanen calling out a Finnish player's dad from their team, talking shit on Finnish TV. So, Dally, the resident Colorado fan here, what are your thoughts on that going on in the locker room in Colorado?
Now, I know, well, Mikko Rantanen is also Finnish too, and Arturi Lekkonen's dad there was the one talking shit about Mikko Rantanen and how in the off season he wasn't really training well. Well, I got a couple things for you there, boss. One, that's none of your business, to talk about, your son's teammates, off season
Star player.
performance. Yeah, exactly. Like, that's just let the man be, let the man breathe. It's worry about your own kid. If you're gonna start talking shit, talk shit about your own kid. Where's your kid right now, buddy? Oh wait, he's on the LTIR there, brother. Like, just there's no place for that. I think that was just a low blow straight to Miko. That was extremely disrespectful. And honestly, like, I hope that the relationship between Arteri and Miko are on good terms. I hope it doesn't really disrupt anything in the locker room between the two. But honestly, like, as Arturi Lekkonen's dad, keep your mouth shut, man. Like, just don't go public about shit like that. Just keep it to yourself if you have disrespectful comments. Like, that was totally uncalled for, man.
And I think, honestly, this comes with not having a captain in the locker room, too. You think if Landy wasn't hurt and he was in the locker room, that, Rantanen wouldn't have went to him and, like, dealt with it. It got to the point where Rantanen, obviously, maybe he told someone and nothing was done about it or whatever, like, nothing was brought up, so he took it upon himself in the media to deal with it because he was fed up over the situation, right? Like, because, Landeskog wasn't there to help him deal with it, so
You can
I
definitely
don't know.
tell that there is a character identity crisis going on in the Avs locker room. Like, they themselves have not been very consistent at all. Like, they all don't really look like they're clicking all too well with each other. So they're definitely missing Gabriel Landeskog as their captain for sure.
Yeah,
Like, they
but
just got pumped tonight.
parents shouldn't be involved in any discussion about any teammates that your kid has. Like, that should all just be kept private. You create drama that's unneeded.
Yeah.
Unless you're getting paid by the NHL to be irrelevant in any way possible, you shouldn't be making statements about other players. And
Yeah,
it's
like, is this minor hockey?
And it's like Lehkonen, you're not even on Rantanen's level. Like
Exactly.
maybe like the relationship between Lehkonen and Rantanen's okay, but Lehkonen's dad didn't need to say anything, and now you just created something that didn't have to be there.
Not only did he say it publicly, it was on TV. Like, he really wanted to make it known that he was
Yeah,
out
he
to
went out of his way
roast
to
him.
say that.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, your son isn't even in the same category as Rantanen.
Talk about replacement value. You can't replace Mikko Rantanen. You can replace Artturi Lehkonen.
100%, yeah. Mikko Rantanen's a franchise player.
And what's he got to say about Rantanen? I'm pretty sure at that point Rantanen had more goals than your all-star player McKinnon.
Yep.
At that time, anyways.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mikko Rantanen set a franchise record last year for most goals in a season by a Colorado Avalanche, you know? Will Artturi Lehkonen ever get 50 goals in a year? Probably not. You know? Man. His dad just needs to keep his mouth shut. That's all I gotta say. Disrespectful as fuck.
We got one
Not your
final
business.
locker room drama situation. Is Bill Guerin, the general manager of the Minnesota Wild. He's under investigation for alleged staff abuse, but it is to note that the offense is not a fireable offense. It was more of just a verbal altercation, but he is under investigation by the team and by the NHL for a alleged abuse incident brought to light. So,
I think last I checked, the players had his back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it wasn't a player. It was like an office staffer, someone in the office section of the team that he yelled at or something. And it doesn't sound like there was any racism, any bullying, but it sounds like it was more of a.
I swear, if it's something that they raise their voice.
Yeah, is this a staff member just being too soft?
It could be. It was almost like it was just he was. What's the word? Like alpha dogging it almost, right? Like, and I'm better than you type of like yelling at the person, like, you better listen to me, like I'm the GM, and like that, like not wording like that, but with that kind of emotion behind that event. Like, that's what so that's why it doesn't sound like it's fireable at all. It's just something that they're going to handle in-house, and it doesn't sound like he's actually, and I guess he's totally like going with the process. He's not fighting against it. So,
man, I swear, if it's an allegation of him raising his voice at an employee, get over yourself, Muffin. All right, don't be so soft, okay? Like, go work in construction. You'll see how real fast you get yelled at by somebody. You know, like, I swear, if it's something to do with getting yelled at, like, grow up, man. Like, go work in a real workforce, you know, that's not so glorified of sitting in an office type of thing, you know. Go work in the trades. You will not last if you think that someone's yelling at you, boy. Holy.
Yeah.
Well,
one other thing. Sorry. Go ahead.
It could also just be something where he asked someone to do something and maybe they just said no, and then he brought out the whole, like, you do what I tell you because I'm higher status than you. But even then, man, like, maybe he was just mad and he got him on a bad day. I don't know, but I feel like, yeah.
I can't see Bill Guerin being that type of guy, though. He came over from the Islanders to the Penguins in 2009 to do their Stanley Cup Cinderella story against the Detroit Red Wings. Like, this guy is a locker room presence back in the day. He was a lovable guy, a likable guy. Everybody liked him, you know? I really can't see Billy Guerin there being a total asshole, but who knows? I mean, we obviously don't know the guy personally, but
everyone has their bad moments, and let's be honest, they've already come out and said it's not a fireable offense. So, like, if this is his worst moment of his career, let's be real, it's not that bad of a moment, right? Like, stuff happens.
Yeah.
Emotions get heated, things,
Maybe he'll just have to apologize to that person, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I will add this too, though. I didn't have this in the notes, but the use of Valimaki's situation that went down. I don't know how much of it you guys saw, but how Valimaki took that puck to the face, ended up needing surgery immediately. The Dallas team doctor sent him in an ambulance, which then released him from Dallas's team, basically responsibilities. It put him off on the ambulance, the hospital, and he sat for hours in the hospital being told to sleep it off, being told to go to a hotel room and take time for, wait for the next morning. They said like he was in the hospital at 2 a.m. They were saying like 2 p.m. they'd get him in or whatever. And it was a nightmare. Doctors after. So his wife actually, because he couldn't talk or anything, his wife actually called the NHLPA, and the NHLPA got on it, and really quickly they like forced him through, got him surgery, and he was told by a different doctor who had looked at him, not the ones that were denying him, but the doctor said, yeah, like if we sent you to a hospital, like there was because he had so many cuts in his mouth, he needed 55 stitches. They were like, yeah, if you probably went to sleep that night, you probably could have asphyxiated on your blood and died in your sleep. So the hospital was not taking care of him whatsoever. So it's a huge investigation by the NHL right now into what happened.
Should be.
The one thing to note is that Juuso Valimaki is not upset with the way the Coyotes handled it. They kept their staffer was there, their one trainer was there arguing the whole time for him to get help. He refused to leave. He said he's staying with them. Well, they didn't try and force him to leave, but he said he was staying with them. He ended up getting a hotel for Valimaki's wife. He got her food. He got everything settled for her. He set up everything. He ended up flying back to Arizona with them, taking care of them. So Valimaki was treated extremely well by Arizona. They're wondering what happened. Did the Dallas doctor not call ahead to the hospital and tell them to prioritize this because they did the MRI or whatever? Like, they're trying to find out what went wrong as to why an NHL player with a broken face was sitting in a waiting room of a hospital for 6+ hours before even getting gauze to help with the blood. He still had his like NHL towel on his face to stop the blood, like not even being looked at for minor injuries. So they're really looking into that. So hopefully they figure that out, because I know, Dak, with you guys in Calgary drafting Valimaki, like he was a good player, and to see him get treated this way and still at a young age, like losing multiple teeth and all this stuff that happened, like you hate to see that. Like I would hate to be in that situation, just waiting endlessly in a hospital. Like
that man
really
deserves a raise.
Yeah, he's getting paid very little comparably.
Yeah, but he's also shown very little. So
yeah, true.
Oh, I'm talking about the guy that was staying with him at the hospital.
Oh.
The Arizona staff member. That man deserves a raise for all that stuff he was doing for him.
I am absolutely positive that the team are going to be sending him some nice dinners and stuff. Like, there's no way he's not getting compensated by the players for taking care of one of their guys. So, but yeah, I just thought I'd throw that in there because that was something I read yesterday, and I was like, that sucks. Like, you hate to hear that have to happen to anyone. So glad that he's able to be on the mend and start the healing process. I don't know how long he's out for, but definitely a long while. As well as, like, also, did you guys see Barclay Goodrow take that puck to the face?
No.
Did not.
So he took a dump into the face, and something like this big and white ended up on the ice, and he left right away, and it wasn't his teeth, and they're pretty sure his jawbone, well, they haven't confirmed it, but the speculators have said they're pretty sure his jawbone broke, punctured through the bottom of his mouth, and then flew out of his mouth onto the ice. Because that was the only thing that was like this big and a bone, but wasn't a tooth, or teeth. They're pretty sure it was a huge chunk of his jawbone. He took a dump in slap shot right. It went just past the middle, past the dot, and then he was behind one of the teammates of that team, and then as soon as that guy moved, it just like hit him right here. It just like blew his jaw apart. So
Gross.
Wild.
just want to throw that
Fucking
in there
wild.
too. Like the facial injuries, that's Chychrun, that's Valimaki, and that's Kucherov, all getting major facial injuries in the last little bit here. Like, I don't know, man. Maybe I said they'd never go away from visors, but like broken jaw, shot to a cage. Broken jaw, shot to a cage.
Dude, they should just bring back the cages, man.
Like,
It's just optional cages.
Like, dude, you have to live the rest of your life with your jaw screwed up now. Like with Valimaki's case, with all those missing teeth and the damage on the side, like, or Chychrun's case, that's a nice part of the face right there. That's a very accentuated part of the face to get that many stitches like this long, right? Like now you're gonna have that scar there forever. Like maybe if these guys just put cages on, it wouldn't look as cool, but you'd make it out with a whole lot less injuries to the face. Guys like Werenski breaking their orbital bone and stuff. All right, we got a couple trades that just happened in the last 24 hours. The Canucks trade Jack Studnicka to San Jose for Nick Cechek and a 2024 6th-round pick. And Colorado trades Thomas Tatar to Seattle for a 2024 5th-round pick. What are you guys' thoughts on these two kind of minor deals?
Weak.
I think for Colorado it was good because they signed Tatar basically as late as possible, and then they get a 5th-round pick for him after no one else wanted him. So
I'm personally not upset about the Tatar trade to Seattle for the 5th round. I think the Vancouver trade was a little bit more weaker. I mean, they're doing it to Studnicka. I mean, it's a little bit of like, all right, 4th liner.
I think the Canucks were just moving out a roster piece. I think they were just moving one. Nothing that they really needed to do there, but yeah, 2 minor trades this week that just kind of happened yesterday, so thought we'd add them in. But now we got the bigger news, the big tournament of the month, the World Junior rosters. We're only going to go over Canada and US, and our thoughts on those because they're obviously the most two relevant for us. Let's talk about them here. We got Team Canada: Owen Allard, Owen Beck, Macklin Celebrini, Easton Cowan, Nate Danielson, Jordan Dumais, Connor Geeky, Fraser Minton, Carson Reckhoff, Matt Savoy, Matthew Wood, Braden Yeager, Oliver Bonk, Jake Furlong, Maverick Lamoureux, Tristan Luneau, Denton Matejchuk, Tanner Molendijk from Kamloops, Noah Warren, Scott Ratzlaff in net with Mathis Rousseau and Samuel St. Hilaire. What are you guys' thoughts on the depth of that Team Canada roster? I have their lines here that they were doing at practice too, if you want to go through those. But what are your guys' thoughts on Canada, the World Junior Championships?
I think it's a little bit of a weak-ish roster than what they could have potentially had. I mean, I know that given, I think Boston didn't let them have Benson, and then Columbus probably didn't give the approval for Fantilli, but I
they
still
should
think
have if they're putting him on the 4th line.
Oh, for sure they should have. I think it's a little weak, personally. The only thing I'm stoked on is Fraser Minton making that roster when I didn't think he would. Yeah.
I thought he would because of his stint in Toronto. He's the only one on that team other than Savoy who played one game, who played NHL minutes this year, I believe. Oh, no, Luneau. Luneau did for Anaheim.
Personally, I think there was a few snubs with the Team Canada selection. I mean, I would have definitely taken Jack Beck over Owen Allard, and definitely I would have kept Jagger Furcus of Moose Jaw. That was definitely a key piece they could have had. Then they would have had 3 players from Moose Jaw. Nonetheless, this is a great team, I think. They're going to be deep this year at the World Juniors, but yeah, I think there was definitely a few of them that was kind of
Riley
questionable
Heidt from Prince George.
Riley Heidt even. Yeah, I had to talk about this the other day. That was a huge snub that didn't even get selected to the selection camp. Like, it was. I honestly feel bad for Riley. That was just total low blow. He definitely should have been selected.
And really, when you look at the lines, they have Easton Cowan, with Geeky and Savoy, who are the Wenatchee Wild teammates, so that makes sense. You got Minton's second line. Honestly, surprising to me, Celebrini is the center of that line with Jordan Dumais. Even McDavid, when he made his debut, was only third line for his Team Canada team. So we'll see how Celebrini does. Even Bedard was fourth line to start. Then obviously he killed it and was first line and all that. But we'll see how Celebrini does. I don't even know who Rekoff is. Sorry to him. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but
he's Kitchener's leading goals or point scorer.
Okay, so he is doing well.
He's a Seattle Kraken draft pick.
Okay, so he is with Braden Yeager and Wood there. And then they got Allard, Beck, and Nate Danielson fourth line. I'm really surprised about Nate Danielson on the fourth line because he's a heck of a player. For a guy who almost made Detroit out of camp, that surprises me.
Captain of Brandon Wheat Kings too now this year. Speaking of captains, who do you really think is going to be captaining Canada this year?
Well, I know I was talking to you, Dally, and I said I thought Nate Danielson was going to be captain with Geeky and Leno being assistants, but now I don't think that anymore. I think they're going to give captaincy to Geeky. I think they're going to give the assistant to Minton and then Matejchuk on defense, the captain of Moose Jaw. What about you guys?
I think looking at that roster, maybe Yager gets an A, maybe Dumais, but I definitely agree with Geeky, Matejchuk, Minton, maybe, but
only because he was captain of the Blazers as soon as he got sent back down, but doesn't
that
necessarily
lasted
mean
3
anything.
weeks, not even.
But also being the guy, having a leader who played in the NHL helps, right? He doesn't have to necessarily be your captain, but having a guy with an A who's he played 9 games in the NHL, that helps calm these guys' nerves down because he's now, these games are not his biggest game of his career because he played for Toronto now. Now it's like everyone else is playing their biggest games of their career to date. So he can kind of be a calming personality for the rest of these guys. They got Matejchuk, Lamoureux, Furlong, Leno, Molendyke, Warren as defense pairings with Bonk as the extra, and then it looks like Scott Ratzlaff will be the starting goalie for Team Canada. But let's jump into the U.S. national team, and to be honest, this team is my pick to win the tournament. I will cheer against them the entire time, but if we're talking about a team that's going to win, this U.S. team is stacked. They have Gavin Brindley, Quinn Finley, Cutter Gauthier, Gavin Hayes, Isaac Howard, Ryan Leonard, Rutger McGroarty, Oliver Moore, Frank Nazar, Danny Nelson, Gabe Perreault, Will Smith, Jimmy Snuggerud, Kerry Terrence on forward. The defense are Zeev Buium, Seamus Casey, Ryan Chelsea, Drew Fortescue, Lane Hutson. And their goalies, I think, is their weak spot. I don't know much about their goalies. Trey Augustine, Jacob Fowler, and Sam Hildebrandt. But that forward group is absolutely insane.
Yeah, a lot of those guys just went in the first round recently, didn't they?
Pretty much every one of them, yeah. I don't think guys like Danny Nelson, Kerry Terrace, Gavin Brindley, and Quinn Finley, and Gavin Hayes, so 5. The rest of them, most of them are top 10 picks. Will Smith's a top 5 pick. Cutter Gauthier is a top 5 pick. Isaac Howard went at the end of the round. Ryan Leonard's a top 10 pick. Rutger McGroarty's in the 20s. Oliver Moore's 11th overall. Frank Nazar's first round. All these guys are first round picks on forward, and they just look stacked. I do not want to play a line that has Rutger McGroarty and Ryan Leonard on it if that's what they do, because those guys are animals, and they will just hit you and hit you and hit you. And so is Gabe Perreault. Gabe Perreault is a guy who uses the body. So if they put all 3 of those guys on a line, it's over. They're huge. They're just going to run right through you. But what are your guys' thoughts on Team USA?
Definitely not my pick to win this year. I'll tell you that for free, man.
Ooh, that sounds biased to me. You think Canada's better?
I think Canada's much deeper, honestly. In the respective leagues, a lot of these Canadian kids, they're leading in scoring, and a lot of them are also captains of their respective teams. I definitely think they're much more deeper than the U.S.
Just because you're captain doesn't mean you're a good player, bud.
I will say, I don't the captaincies don't count for most of these college kids because their captains are like 24 years old, seniors. Most of these guys are like 19, 20-year-old sophomore, juniors.
I know these college kids are playing with guys a little bit older too. Like, they're playing, with much older guys. But I also think, like, just think of the statistics, right? Like Canada in recent memory, they're always going, to either the medal games. Like, I don't think Canada has in a while not been to a medal game. Like, we've always developed great prospects.
In the
It
last
just shows,
5
history
years,
shows.
in the last 5 years, we didn't get a medal once.
I mean,
somewhere.
Also, nobody's saying Canada won't medal. We're just saying that I think
No, I'm
Canada
saying that they're
could be
deeper than the U.S.
I don't,
No.
dude. I don't.
No.
Because Canada could be 10 times deeper.
Could. 100%. Yeah, they could. There was a lot of guys they messed up on.
They have the best defenseman in the tournament in Laine right off the bat for the U.S. They probably have the best forward in this tournament in Cutter Gauthier. And then right behind Cutter Gauthier is Jimmy Snuggerud. So, like, I don't know. Then you have guys who are just dominating for their teams. Isaac Howard, Ryan Leonard, Rucker McGroarty, Oliver Moore. Say those 5 names in a row, like 100 times to yourself, and you'll be like, holy crap, that should be their first 2 lines, and those aren't even their best players.
That's fair.
So I give my pick for who's going to win to U.S. I'm hearing Sweden is pretty deep too. Maybe we'll cover them, maybe not. It depends. But I think that if I had to pick just off looking at a roster, this U.S. team is going to fill the net, and they're big, and they're aggressive, and they're going to be fun to watch.
And that's given with us thinking their goalies aren't that deep, so they better have a lot of scoring. And I think that's where Canada's probably a little bit stronger.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be, like, if Canada wins, it's going to be in Canada fashion. They're going to lose game 1 to USA. Yeah. And then it's going to be gold medal game. Canada wins by 1 goal or something.
That's always the rule of thumb.
And it's going to be a battle. And
yeah. Whoever wins the wild card game never wins the gold medal game. That's just how it always is because they play too well. But I got US. Right after the World Juniors, though, about a month after, is the NHL All-Star Game, where they've announced that they're doing a 12-player skills competition that will feature a $1 million winner-take-all prize. What are your guys' thoughts on a little bit different skill competition going on? Apparently, McDavid was a big help. They were using McDavid in the discussions about what to do. He was one of the guys in the development team on this, so they actually used the best player in the league to decide what to do in the All-Star Skills competition. So that's nice that they started to get some player feedback.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always up for the All-Star game, trying to bring in new ways to make it exciting. I love that they're bringing back their draft.
Love that. So, I wonder if they're going to bring back the whole whoever's drafted last gets the car.
Or something, at least, hopefully.
Yeah, right.
But I wouldn't mind to see a big East versus West game again. Yeah. I think that brought back would be sweet.
None of this are Metro versus Atlantic versus Central versus Pacific shit.
Like, it's fun for the show of it, but what's the point on them showing up? Like, you win a little bit of money, but you see it doesn't matter at the end of the day because, a breakout pass and everyone stops skating at the red line, gives the guy a breakaway, the goalie's doing windmills. Like, there's not an effort there. There needs to be something that matters to these guys. I don't think to the point like the NBA does, where the All-Star game determines what conference gets home court advantage in the finals. Like, to me,
same with the MLB All-Star game.
Yeah, like, that's too, like, it's an All-Star game. Like, come on, it can't determine the finals of the league. Like, that's too far. But give these guys something to play for. Like, not included for them, but like all, trips for their family or like something, right? Where it's not so focused on them, but they're playing for their kids to go on a trip, or like, something fun for them to work towards. Not
Well, I
just,
don't know if you
oh yeah,
notice, if you've ever watched an MLB All-Star game, they play a little bit harder to get that home
mhm,
field advantage come playoffs, as in the NHL. You notice they don't try as hard. It's just more for fun, per se.
yeah.
So,
But I just think you can't make the All-Star game determine home
yeah, it's
advantage
supposed to just
in
be
the
for the
finals.
fans, man.
Yeah,
And it's in Toronto
like,
this year, so who knows what they'll do this year, Some
yeah.
fun
Oh,
new
we were talking
things.
about this, Dally, before Dak came on there quick. We were talking about how Tate McRae will be the halftime singer or whatever you want to call it. So hopefully Cole Sillinger doesn't make it for Columbus, because she will definitely be singing her song about Cole Sillinger there. And whoever's on Columbus better videotape it live, because that would be hilarious.
Bad move, Cole.
We're going to jump to our game day reviews and our Battle of the Tarps quick, and then we're done. So, actually, well, we've even done most. So, game day review, Dallas, you had Columbus, Dak, you had San Jose, and I had Buffalo. So, luckily, these are three pretty quick and easy ones because they all suck. They all are at the bottom of the league, and they all don't have much prospect going forward. So, Dally, you can cover whatever's left at Columbus because we have covered a lot, but just whatever you think as the last couple parting thoughts on where Columbus is at this point in the year.
So they're sitting at 25 points in the Metro right now, and then the Penguins are only sitting at 29 points, so 4 points ahead of them right now. And the two teams are literally fighting for last place in the Metro. With Columbus, I really don't see them finishing much higher than last place in the Metro. They're definitely a struggling franchise. I mean, they just they can't find their footing, When you got your general manager and your head coach just honestly ruining this team with, benching, and sending down your top prospects, Like I get it, you're benching and sitting your top players because they're not performing. So be it, Like sometimes tough love is what you need, but there's definitely some turmoil and some uncertainty in Columbus that they really need to find out quick coming into next season, because this season is a joke. It's a failed state basically. So I think they have next season to look forward to in Columbus. So that's all I got to say on them. I mean, I don't see them making it pretty far.
Yeah, on to next year. That's it for them. Go ahead, Dak, on San Jose.
Oh, yeah, I don't see I don't think they expect themselves to make it. They're probably going to be sellers to teams that are trying to make the playoffs. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's
Yeah.
much to talk about with San Jose.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, Buffalo, they are the only one of the three that really have hope for getting back into this, but it's a stretch. I mean, they're playing better at the last couple games, but not in terms of like totally changing their season around. So, yeah, to me, at least they have Devin Levi's only in his first year, so he has the chance to sort it out. And they haven't had Tage Thompson, they haven't had Alex Tuck. Like they've been missing some important pieces. So for me, yeah, I think that Buffalo of the three is the one that can come back, but it's a long road for them to do so. All right, final segment of the night, Battle of the Tarps. We are going to talk about Ljubljana of the Ice Hockey League, and then we are going to talk about the Sioux Eagles in the Northern Ontario Junior Hockey League. Those are the ones that we got in our randomizer. These are the jerseys we got. So Ljubljana, they are a green jersey with a dragon on it. Their logo is in the bottom corner. To me, one of the better logos out there. Sorry, Dak, you don't have the photo. Let me find it here. All right, that again. Ljubljana. Here we go. Okay, so there it is. I just sent it to you guys. So it's green. It's got a dark green dragon on it. Very minimal advertisement as compared to Cuckoo last week for being a European team. They have clean socks. The only thing I don't really like is their pants. Their pants have a massive logo on each side. The same one, too. It's not different. But and then maybe the white helmet on the green. I think they could have went with the green helmet instead of white. But other than that, I think this is one of the better jerseys I've seen. Not having a main logo where their logo is actually on that bottom left there, where the number is above, where the player's number is above it. But then they have like just that cool dragon design in the jersey setup. So I really like this one. It's something different. It's something with more flavor and not too many logos for a European team.
Yeah, it looks like it definitely has a fresh take on jerseys to be made. I mean, it doesn't look like the dragon on the jersey is like an actual, like, it looks like it's like built into the jersey, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that definitely looks cool. I dig the lime green look. I don't know why, but to have the lime green jersey, the darker green shorts, and then the lime green socks, I think that's, they made it look clean.
Yeah.
I definitely love it. I mean, it's simple. You know, you don't have so many advertisements just plaguing the jersey. You know, you got a couple simple ones there, and then you got the logo as the forefront. Beautiful. Like, I just love the forest green colored with the dragon and the lime green, like you said, Dakota. It's awesome. Very simple.
Yeah, and then so battling them in the Battle of the Tarps this week is the Sioux Eagles, who you showed there, Dallas, their white jersey. I kind of like their logo, massive Sioux in the back with the 3 letters there, the yellow, and then the Eagles on the bottom with that big eagle in the middle. They have really nice striping on the shoulders that continue on the arms, and it matches on the bottom of the jersey as well. This is a league where they wear cages, so this guy is wearing a cage because it is an amateur league. But for as far as like a white jersey goes, this is actually a very clean jersey as well for what they had to work with, and I think they've done a really good job.
Yeah, it definitely gives me Cape Breton Screaming Eagle vibes with their jersey and their kit. I like it too. I mean, the yellow and blacks complement each other well. I like the big Sioux and big lettering with the eagle. Yeah, I like it. Honestly, it's gonna be tough for this one this week for Battle of the Tarps. It's gonna be hard to judge.
Yeah, we'll have to see what the fans say in the poll. Because last week we had our winner of Acadia Bathurst Teton winning over Cuckoo. I think that was almost a no-brainer for us because the Teton had such nice jerseys. So we will put the poll up this week and see who wins the Battle of the Tarps to verse then Acadia Bathurst in the next round. And we'll get our other teams going in the bracket from there on the other side of the bracket starting next week. So as far as we have it now, that's everything for Gameday Tarps podcast episode 15. As always, everyone, thank you for listening. Check us out on all social media, on all platforms for podcasts, and YouTube as well. So thanks again, and have a good night.